Welcome to the Chapel Thrill Podcast with Hunter Caparelli and JJ Jones.
What is up, Tar Heel Nation? Welcome to the third edition of the Chapel Thrill Pod, your home for all things Carolina basketball. I'm Hunter Caparelli, sideline reporter, studio host, analyst for ACC Network Extra. Joining me is my co-host, former UNC football wide receiver JJ Jones, as well as a brand new guest on the show, 24/7 Sports and CBS reporter, editor, writer, podcast host, content creator Ross Martin. Ross, great to have you on the show.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. I know since the last time we aired our last episode, the Tar Heels flew down to Florida for the Feast Week Fort Myers tournament, where they played two neutral site games, a win against St. Bonaventure and a loss against Michigan State. Let's hop right into it. I know on everyone's mind is the recent Michigan State loss. Just quick first opinions, thoughts on what you guys saw from the game.
You got it, Ross. Go ahead. You the inside man. Let's hear it from you.
I mean, look, I think my kind of takeaway on this is that they got exposed in a couple ways against really good competition. I think Michigan State's a pretty good team. I think we'll see them, be a pretty good team throughout the Big Ten season. And you got to make shots. I mean, it's very simple. Like, this team without Seth Trimble needs Luka, Bogovac, Kyan Evans, Jaron Stevenson. They need to make a couple threes. I mean, Luka needs to just score more, and so does Kyan. They got to be more aggressive. I think that team without Seth, who can kind of drive and slash and really create a lot of offense at the rim and in transition, this team's going to have to hit shots without them. I think we know what we're going to get from Caleb Wilson. We know we're going to get from Henri Veesaar. I thought Veesaar has lived up to exactly what we expected him to do. But they brought in Luka and Kyan Evans to score. And those guys got to score. They got to be aggressive. I mean, they're good players. We just haven't seen it consistently yet. I think that was just kind of surface level, I think personnel-wise, what this team, what got exposed against Michigan State. Now you can get into kind of, the lack of defense against the Spartans, the inability to score at certain points, the inability to stop runs. But ultimately, this team is limited athletically. I think Seth Trimble really brings a lot in terms of perimeter defense and does a lot. And so without Seth Trimble, they're going to have to, outscore teams in certain ways or get a couple more threes from certain guys. And that was clearly shown against a really, really good team. And they're going to play, UNC's going to play a lot of really, really good teams this year, starting Tuesday against Kentucky when we recording here on Sunday night.
Totally. I completely agree. JJ, what about you? Kind of initial thoughts, opinions from the loss?
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to piggyback off of Ross. I think just guard play and not being able to score from the perimeter was kind of our kryptonite in that game. And like I said last week a few weeks ago on our last pod, it came down to physicality. When you watch Michigan State's basketball team, they're a very physical team. And that's why I said a few weeks ago was like, we need to match the physicality of this Michigan State team, this Tom Izzo team. And I just don't think we did that on the offense or the defensive end. It just, like I said, we exposed a lot of weaknesses in our game, especially in the guard play. We saw what Veesaar can do. We saw what Wilson can do. It's just now we need to see what the guards can do. Can they make plays? Because down the stretch, our bigs can make all the plays they can throughout the year, but if the guards can't go out there and really make throughout the season, then it's going to be a very long year.
I know we didn't make. Yeah, go ahead, Ross.
I think it starts with Hubert, running things for Luka and Kyan. There's got to be set plays early in the game to get Kyan and Luka some clear shots or easy looks, or something off the screen, or even in transition where they can kind of see the ball go through the hoop and get comfortable. Because I think those guys are scorers and shooters, and seeing the ball go in early improves their confidence and gives them that comfortability early in the game. And I think both those guys are better off the pass, off a screen, getting kind of a clear look in the mid-range or something at the basket. And that starts with play calling and figuring out what works against the competition with set plays, set kind of schemes early on, give them good looks. And look, I think their shot selection was fine. I had no issue with some of the looks that Luka had. So, I mean, is it on Hubert or is it more on make your freaking shots? You're getting paid, literally paid now to make shots. And you're going to see games like that when UNC doesn't make shots. You're going to see games when we don't have to talk about this, and it's going to be, damn, we got three. UNC has three guys who could make three threes a game, plus Kale, plus Henri. So, it might be one of those games. And credit Michigan State for their defense, like JJ said, like they're tough, they're perimeter defense, like they're known for that physicality, and they probably had a little better athletic players who could defend what UNC has.
I know at the 7:40 mark in the first half, that was when UNC had the 22, 15-point lead. It was their largest lead at that point. Out of their first 17 shots, five of them were from 3-point range. And then over the next 22 minutes, 16 out of the 34 were from three. Do you think that, that increase in the 3-point kind of tendency, even though like they weren't falling, but they decided to just keep shooting them, keep shooting them. Do you think they should have adjusted, maybe going down the stretch in the second half to maybe try to get the ball inside more into Caleb and Veesaar? Or do you think it was one of those things where we're kind of living and dying by the three at this point?
Go ahead, JJ.
No, you go ahead, man. I was thinking the question was for you. I thought it was for you. Yeah.
Either or.
There's players that just shoot threes, and that's kind of their offense.
Right.
And that's when you kind of get down, it becomes a numbers game. When you get down, there's this need to like, oh shoot, we're down 10, we're down 8, we got to start making threes. But yeah, I had no problem with the threes they're taking. You just got to make them. And like Kyan Evans going 0 for 5, Luka going 1.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Yeah, those are your scores, your guards. So I don't know. One thing I said on my podcast on Thursday night after the game was like, I think having Seth drawing attention as a slasher, cutting, because he's like the best player in terms of getting into the lane that UNC has. I think that can open things up to other players. So, but you can't. This is the team we have right now. You can't be making excuses for not having Seth. But I think the scheme changes when Seth's in there because he does draw a lot of attention in what he can do offensively. I don't know if they should have stopped taking threes. I think. If you make them, it's awesome. If you miss them, you don't. That's how it works.
I think it was no secret Michigan State was going to hammer the offensive class. They definitely succeeded in that in the first half when UNC had to play long stretches without Veesaar and Wilson, who were both hit with 2 early fouls. I think one of my biggest takeaways was the fact that with Trimble out, if Veesaar and Wilson both hit the bench, you're kind of missing your 3 big offensive initiators where the 5 guys on the court are kind of waiting for the shots to come to them rather than forcing the initiative and trying to get to the basket and creating their own offense. JJ, based on that, how important do you think it is that Trimble gets back in the near future and the fact that having to get Veesaar and Wilson, keeping them out of foul trouble?
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to just having playmakers out on the court. Like you said, when you don't have Veesaar, Wilson, or Trimble on the court, who is going to be that offensive weapon? Who's going to be that guy to be the catalyst for this offense? Like you said, they're looking for shots to come to them. I want to see a guy like Kyan Evans or Luka or who knows. I need somebody to bring that spark to the offense. Defensively, that's a conversation for another time. But on the offensive side of the ball, I need to see somebody who wants to go out there and score. Like I think Kyan Evans is that guy to be the scorer for them. I think he's kind of just really hesitant because he knows he has Wilson or Veesaar to dish it out to. But when you have those guys on the bench, somebody's got to bring that spark. Someone's got to be that offensive playmaker. And like I've said this before, we see those first 6 guys who can play, but we need the 7th guy, 8th guy, 9th guy to come in and contribute in a tremendous way because, Coach Hubert Davis has always been known to play his iron 5, iron 6 people. But with Trimble out, you gotta find guys that are on the bench who can come in and make an impact right away.
Totally. Ross, going off that, I want to ask you, I know UNC, they just managed 5 bench points compared to the Spartans' 20 bench points. Going forward, especially in this huge kind of blue blood showdown Tuesday night, which bench reserve do you think really need to step up going forward without Trimble?
I like Powell. I think Jonathan Powell brings a good size, positional size, 6'6", 6'7" at the kind of the 2-3. I think he has proven at West Virginia he was a 3-point shooter. He was only a sophomore. It seems like I feel good with him on the floor. I would like for him obviously to score more. He went 1 for 5 from the field against Michigan State. And I like Derek Dixon. Derek
Mhm.
Dixon's
I like
doesn't
this one
seem
too.
it's a freshman. Doesn't seem like he's a freshman out there. But again, those guys are limited. Like they're not super athletic. They don't jump off the field. They don't jump off the court. They do seem like they're decent defenders. They don't get blown by a lot. Those are the two that I like the most. I mean, because obviously, yeah, I mean, Zayden High and James Brown, they're not. I don't think they're UNC caliber players, and I don't even know if I think they're liabilities sometimes when they get in. So
Yeah.
I would move away from those guys because I think when they come in, it just seems like the other team goes on a run or there's like a turnover or some sloppy offensive or defensive mistake that costs UNC a couple points here and there. So I would even like to see if there is foul trouble with Wilson or Veesaar, which I think UNC will face multiple times throughout the season. I wouldn't mind seeing one of those guys going into 5 and then Stevenson moving to the 4, Stevenson moving to the 5, and Wilson playing the 4, and just go a little bit smaller because you do have 3 guys that are over 6'10 with Veesaar, Wilson, and Stevenson. I'd
Right.
much rather have that than someone who can't. I mean, you can't count on Zayden High or James Brown to give you any sort of things on offense. Like they look like they are lost out there.
Mhm.
And really handle the ball or do much or create any sort of their own offense. I mean, get in there. They got to get in there, set a screen and rebound and defend. So I feel, I think, the Seth Trimble, we'll see. I mean, it was one loss,
Right.
but the Seth
Yeah.
Trimble absence does kind of change the math on the lineup and the starting lineup and the rotation. I think it'll be much improved when he comes back, but that's going to be, could be 3, 4, 5, 6 more weeks before he's back in action. So you've got to lean on getting Dixon more minutes and Powell more minutes, especially in these games where UNC is going to be favored to win by a lot. Some of these December games at home.
JJ, what are your thoughts on our big man depth? I know there's definitely been a lot of noise around it, especially with Trimble out. You're starting 3 guys over 6'10 with Stevenson, Veesaar, and Wilson. But, we're going to guys like Zayden High, James Brown, who haven't really given too much early on the season. Do you think it's one of those things where they might just be liabilities throughout the year? Or because, they're both sort of younger, that maybe, as they continue to get acclimated to this new offense, that they can maybe hopefully, be contributors down the stretch in ACC play. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, they are really young, but I mean, it's kind of really big shoes to fill in when you have to go in for a guy like Wilson or Veesaar, and they're
Right.
not as, I guess, technically sound or polished basketball players as those 2 guys. I mean, I know Caleb Wilson's young, but he's one of the best players in the country for his age and just for being a basketball player on the court. Veesaar, he's got the experience. He's an older player. It's just, Zayden High hasn't had a lot of on court appearances. Neither has what's it, Brown? Brown with the goggles,
James
the one with the
Brown.
goggles. Yeah,
Yeah,
James
James
Brown.
Brown.
He doesn't have a lot of on-court appearances either. So it is definitely going to be tough. But I, if I'm Coach Hubert Davis, I'm going to have to stick to my gut and to be the Iron Five kind of guy. I know they're going to be tired. They might do some more conditioning in practice, but you have to have them on the court at all times because those are your best players. And you can take one out, you can take the other out, but having both of them off the court at the same time is that's UNC's liability. That's UNC's kryptonite. And when a team sees both of those guys off the court at the same time, that's when teams are going to have the best outcome, best production.
I do worry about Veesaar's endurance and just like wearing down. You know how it
Yeah.
goes, EJ,
Right.
in like a long season, like by January and February, like he is playing so many minutes and he works so hard. You can kind of, I mean, he puts everything he has into those, 30, 35 minutes he's playing. They're going to need him for all those, kind of like with Baycott. If you remember, I'm sure
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
like wore down at the end of the season because he's all UNC had. And they need him for like 20 points and 10 rebounds a game. And that wears, I mean, especially when you're defending the other team's best big man. So I do worry about Veesaar's just like overall health and endurance as the season progresses. So they're gonna have to find some ways to steal him rest. And that's like in these lesser competitive games, definitely only playing him like 20, 25 minutes. But then
Exactly. Yeah.
games where you need him, you're gonna have to steal minutes before timeouts, before the half and one of these guys, Zayden High or James Brown, like just has to improve, or you just can't play them. And you have to go with a smaller lineup, which I have no problem with going with a small lineup.
Yeah.
Throw in Stevenson and Wilson at the 4 and 5. I mean, you put Hal in there as a stretch
Yeah.
for like, it's an athletic game. It's not like football where size can decide life or death. I mean, you can play a smaller guy at the 4 seen that happen before. So, yeah, I mean, the obvious roster construction issue with this team is a backup five. That's
Totally.
very
Totally. Ross, before we let you get out of here, I want to get kind of your takes on the preview for UNC at Kentucky Tuesday night. It's Carolina's first appearance in Rupp since 2014. It was actually when Kentucky was number one and they had Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns. They beat UNC by 14, who had Marcus Page at the time. Just going into it, I know most notably for Kentucky, right now they're missing Jalen Lowe, the transfer from Pitt, was a third team All ACC selection last year, and they're still waiting to get back their big Arizona State transfer, Jaden Quintanans, who's supposed to be a top five pick in the draft next year. So, looking at that going into the game on the road, what are your thoughts on what Carolina has to do to pull off the upset?
I haven't seen Kentucky play yet, so you're hitting me with a
Mhm.
preview of a team I haven't seen. I know they have two losses on their schedule. They lost to Louisville, which I think is going to be a very good team in the ACC,
Totally.
90-88. They lost to Michigan State, so there's a common opponent here, 83-66. That was a neutral site game, I
Mm.
believe. Other than that, they've kind of played lesser competition and handled them. I mean,
Right.
you've got to think the crowd factor here is massive. It's a 9:30 Eastern
Yeah.
game. Lexington, Kentucky, I believe is Central Time Zone. Just be 8:30. I mean, people would be liquored up. The holidays are around the corner. It's going to be a rowdy
Yeah,
crowd, and like that's a rabid fan base.
it
Um,
is.
that's gonna be a true road test, which is great. It's a fun atmosphere. 8:30 on Tuesday night. So that's when you're gonna have, you're gonna have to take their hits, their runs, bounce back. You're gonna have to have some key communication from your leadership. You're gonna have to like, there's gonna be moments when this team looks rattled, and Kentucky has some big dunk, and there's a big, a couple threes back to back where it's like the house is rocking, and so that's when like calm people down. I think UNC on paper right now is probably the better team based on
Mhm.
just kind of Kentucky's early season struggles, but the home court advantage at the college level is a real thing. So that would be like the clear, obvious, easy takeaway is how you handle a very rabid fan base. Students are still on campus coming off the Thanksgiving break. So that's all I got in terms of the
Yeah,
preview. I don't really know. Haven't
yeah,
watched them. I know
that's
they
good.
did well in the portal, but as we see in the portal's not everything. You can do well and not have that much chemistry. So Mark Pope certainly has his hands full in Kentucky, kind of getting this team playing together, just like every team that brought in a lot of
Yeah,
transfers. It's early. You're still kind of learning each other, and the chemistry is a huge factor there. So, but for our UNC side, as I continue here, as I talk more than I should,
very good.
be a huge road win for UNC, right? Bounce back from Michigan, like the
Yeah.
Michigan State. It's an opportunity for UNC to get right back on track, and then all of a sudden, people that were pissed about the Michigan State loss are it would be a significant win for UNC to go into Rupp and get a W and kind of get right back on track heading into the December slate because they do have to play Ohio State later on. But it's a really fun non-conference for the Tar Heels.
And it'll be one of those few quad one opportunities. I know last
Yeah.
year it was definitely a problem trying to get those quad one wins with tournament resume going into March. It'll definitely be a big one. All right. Thank you, Ross, for hopping
Yeah,
on the
I got one
show.
thing out. I want to ask JJ a question. This is called
Uh,
podcasting. You got to mix it up. JJ, I saw your video all over Twitter this week with the flag throw. Let's get what was that like, man?
It
Give us the
was,
mindset of the flag throw last year. I was there. I was right there in the blue zone.
I mean, sometimes you got to protect the house, and it was just a crazy whole situation. I wasn't planning on it. I was very cordial after the game. I mean, I was talking to NC State guys, telling them good game, and I just saw somebody grab a flag, and then next thing I remember is being at the house. So from that point on to where I got to the house, it was just all blacked out. Everyone told me to snap it. The wooden rod was too thick. I'm not Bill Jackson. Um, Throwing it was the next best thing. But I had to protect the house. Love UNC. I'm
They
a
come
diehard.
after you after that. Did they try to fight you after that?
Oh yeah, I mean
Okay.
that was probably one of the greatest rivalry weeks of probably college football ever, just
oh
across the
yeah,
whole college football landscape. Everybody was fighting
it
that
was
day.
yeah,
Yeah,
everyone was
right.
fighting that day. I mean, it
So
was
I think it was fair.
seven everywhere.
It was definitely it was fair just because of everything we've been through. And that was just a lot of pent up aggression from the
Yeah.
season
We
season
we
before.
needed We needed more of that on Saturday. There wasn't enough of that. We got it all. It was
It's a
all. We
basketball
got it all
podcast.
last Saturday. Yeah.
Basketball podcast. Season's over with.
Uh,
We're on to next year already.
yeah. On the next year. All right. Well.
I appreciate having you on.
All right. Welcome back, Char Hill Nation. Thanks for having on Ross Martin, 24/7 Sports, CBS reporter, UNC reporter. It was great to hear his takes on the team. JJ, I want to still get into deep diving on this, performance between St. Bonaventure and Michigan State. Obviously, the Bonnies were a capable opponent. They'll most likely be a tourney team, so that was a great win. And then you have the 14-point loss to Michigan State. Just want to get, a little more deep diving in this team where you think what went well, last week with the team and maybe areas that they really need to focus on for Tuesday night against Kentucky.
Yeah, I think, like I said before, I think that Michigan State game was really it exposed a lot of our weaknesses. I mean, we know what we can get from Wilson and Veesaar. Again, I wanted to see more out of the guards. The guard play for me, I mean, from both games versus St. Bonaventure and Michigan State, you could tell the front court is really those two guys are our players, and we understand that. We know that as UNC fans, UNC watchers. But I think I don't want to bring football onto here, but I want to compare it to football for a second because that's what I know.
Right.
Being a UNC as a receiver the past 4 years, it's hard whenever you have. I played with Sam Howell, UNC legend, NFL draft pick. I played with Drake May, UNC legend, NFL draft pick.
Right.
Last year, whoever got to play in that role was already it was hard. The shoes were really big to fill. And when you watch UNC basketball the past 5 years, you have these guards, you have these big men, you have guys like RJ Davis, you have Armando Bacot, you got Brady Manick, you got Caleb Love. And so when that old UNC basketball team that we're so used to watching and seeing is gone, we're so used to greatness, and the expectation is always to be great. And we have all these transfers coming in who understand what UNC basketball is, but it's hard to fill those shoes. And so, in terms of the guards, we don't have the guards like RJ. I think for me, as just a fan of the game, I have to get that out of my head that we're not going to have another. We're not. This team isn't guards of RJ. It's not Caleb
Right.
Love. This is a brand new UNC basketball team. So it's hard. It's hard to watch them and judge them like that. And I think I can speak for every other fan. It's growing pains in terms of guard play because that's kind of always been our strength in the past few years is our guard play. And when you have this
Yeah.
year, when we don't have consistency at the one or the two, that makes fans think, okay, the season's not going to go well. We got to lean on our big men. But like we talked about earlier, big men, they're going to get tired easily. So, and in the tournament, guards win games. I don't care what anybody says. The big men could do well, but guards are the ones who win the games.
And you look back at history, look at Marcus Page, Joel Berry, recently Caleb Love, RJ Davis, guys who have been able to initiate their own offense, facilitate, but also really get to the basket, score, shoot from the outside. I think with guys like Kyan Evan, Derek Dixon, they're going to do well facilitating it to our guys down low with Caleb Wilson, Henri Veesaar. But what are you going to give me else offensively? If you're going to shoot the three, are we going to get those percentages up where we're, really blistering it? I know down the stretch, that second half against Michigan State, the Spartans simply just did a better job of creating good shots than we did. They shot 60% from the field. The Heels shot their season worst 38% from the field and a season worst 17% from three. So we need our guards to really, if we know what they're going to do, facilitating, playmaking wise. We really need them to initiate more offense and shoot the ball better from three. Michigan State, they finished the game 26 for 50 on 2-point shots. It's about 50%. UNC entered the game as the best 2-point defense in the country, limiting opponents to just 35%. Do you think defense is something that Carolina needs to rely on going down the stretch with these last couple non-con games and getting into ACC play?
Oh, absolutely. I think defense has kind of been the hard hat for Coach Hubert in the past. Defense has always been a struggle at UNC
Right.
for some reason. In terms, we've always been able to score offensively. We're great in transition. We're great on fast breaks in terms of drive and cut and drive and pass it out and dishing it out to everybody. That's kind of been what we've been good at. But defense has always kind of been a struggle at UNC. And I think if we're looking at the Michigan State game, this was a whole different kind of like defensive game in terms of just physicality. We haven't faced anybody with that such physicality when it comes to the glass, just defending off and on ball screens. Like I was watching the game, and you got Michigan State's big man pushing Veesaar and pushing
Yeah.
Wilson and pushing all these guys off the post for the rebounds. We can't have that. I mean, don't
Cooper,
get me wrong, Michigan, yeah,
Cooper was a menace down low for the Spartans.
exactly. We cannot have that heading into these non-conference games because we know we have a lot of UNC basketball haters out there, and we have to continue to get better every week. But that's one thing I do want to see in this Kentucky game, which we're going to talk about more in a little bit, but just physicality on the defensive side and turnovers. I think turnovers is also something we need to work on.
Just wrapping things up from the Michigan State game, we asked Ross about it as far as reserves coming off the bench and contributing. He mentioned Jonathan Powell. I agree. I thought the best minutes of the season from Powell were in that first half. He had team high, 6 rebounds, 3 offensive. He was really crashing the boards well. He also made a 3-pointer in that first half. If we could get guys like Powell to, eventually like really shoot the ball more consistently and also give that energy off the bench. Again, UNC only had 5 bench points in that game against Michigan State. And we're going to go into Rupp in Lexington on Tuesday night and take down Kentucky. I really think it's going to be because of players coming off the bench and contributing offensively and defensively. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a huge road game. This is one of the toughest environments in college basketball. Like you said, this is one of the games where I think just in general for any sport, these road games are the kind of games where you have a bench player or kind of rotation or not a Superman guy come in and they contribute really positive minutes. And that's something I want to see. Like I said, Jonathan Powell, he put up probably one of his best games the other day, and I want to continue to see that, continue to see improvement. This Kentucky team, they look good. They lost to Louisville, who Louisville I believe is probably one of the best teams in the ACC, and they lost
I
to
agree.
Michigan State just as we did.
Just as we
But
did.
they looked more physical when they played Michigan State because I went back and I watched that game. They looked like they wanted to compete, and it seemed like UNC didn't have that I want to compete factor. Now, don't get me wrong. It might have been because it might have been an invitational or just a out of conference neutral site tournament that might have taken the stakes down and the energy. But now we're going to one of the top environments in college basketball.
Yeah.
And road games are not easy to win, especially in Rupp Arena. And
I haven't been there in 11 years.
exactly.
I haven't been there in 11 years.
And who was the last people that we played against that was on Kentucky? You said what? Devin Booker,
Karl Anthony Towns. #1 Kentucky. It was the last time
That's a
UNC played in
long
Rupp.
time. That is a long time, and I don't think UNC in recent years. I can't really remember environment other than Duke, but that's such a small stadium, the high school stadium. But like an environment where it's going to be that electric, that loud, and contrary to what people believe, fans and an environment and a stadium can truly change a game. And that's what I think that UNC hasn't seen yet. And I think it's going to be UNC's first test on the road. Like I said, first true road game. And I think this kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season because you have this Michigan State loss. How do you bounce back it's hard. If they would have lost Michigan State and then it played, a lesser opponent and won that, cool. But you have a huge game at hand. How do you bounce back after this loss? I think this game is pivotal for this season. I think this is the kind of game where you figure out if UNC really wants it or not.
I completely agree. A few players to watch for Kentucky. You have senior guard Otega Oweh, who's a preseason player of the year contender for the SEC pick. He's been playing all right. He's averaging around 13 and 4. As of right now, he was definitely a guy where if Trimble was active and playing, I think would have been an immediate throw Trimble, shadow him on Oweh. Without Trimble, I think you're going to be looking at guys like Bogovats, like Derek Dixon to step up on him defensively. You also have Florida's transfer, Denzel Aberdeen. He's currently leading the team right now with 14, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists a game. He's been playing pretty well. Obviously, he has the championship from last year with Florida, so championship experience. The guard play between Aberdeen and Oweh, I think them versus our guards, Kyan Evans, Derek Dixon, Luka Bogovats, is going to be critical for the Heels trying to get this upset win. What are your thoughts on how like the guard competition between the two teams?
Yeah, I think the guard play is that's going to be the bread and butter for this game. We know what
Mhm.
both front courts can do. Those are kind of the really primary scorers, primary players for both
Right.
teams. It really comes out to who is going to be the best playmaker on the court in this game, whether it's UNC or Kentucky. These are both backcourts who have some experience but haven't been able to play to the level that the front court of these teams are. I'm just really excited to watch these two teams play just because there's so much at stake. There's so much at hand. I mean, Kentucky, they have 2 losses. UNC has 1 loss. This is a game for both programs to see the trajectory of what this season will turn into.
I don't think we could potentially use the excuse of not having Trimble for this huge blue blood
But
matchup.
that is huge. But
It
that
is
is huge.
huge. It is huge. Kentucky, like I mentioned before, they're missing two guys who I think normally would be starting. Jalen Lowe, he's third team all ACC pick from Pitt, who when healthy, he's going to be one of their top guards. And then Jaden Quintanez, who hasn't even played yet this year, 7 foot center. Before he tore his ACL last year with Arizona State, he was a menace down low, defensively and offensively. He's projected to go potentially top five in the NBA draft next year. So the fact that we have our big injury with Trimble, they're missing two of their starters. It's really a big opportunity for the Heels to go in. I'm assuming that betting wise, Carolina is going to be a slight underdog just because it's in Lexington on the road.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll be considered an upset if UNC was able to take the Wildcats down. But I think it's going to be a really close game going down the stretch. I expect this to be in single digits throughout the game, and I think it's going to come down to who can make those last couple shots in the last 2 minutes. If it's Kentucky side, is that Otega Owe? Is that Denzel Aberdeen? On UNC side, is that Caleb Wilson? Is that Henri Veesaar? Is that Luka Bogovac? Who is going to make that first real season highlight making shot
Yeah.
to get their team a huge quad one win, tournament resume builder going into the rest of non-conference play?
Mm-hmm.
What's your prediction for how this game ends?
I'm gonna have to give the slight advantage to Kentucky just because of the environment coming off of this game against Michigan State, where I see an opponent who is very physical. We saw what that UNC lacks physicality they need on the offense and the defensive end. And like I said, this is a very tough road game. I believe it stays close. I think UNC still creates points. I know we harp on the guards need to do this, the guards need to do that. Even if they don't do that, I believe that the front court is still going to hold their weight. They're going to have probably 3/4 of the contribution of this game. We can trust them. We can believe in them. I do give Kentucky probably a 5-6 point win just because it is at Rupp Arena. If it was at UNC, I'd probably give it to them because that's also a great road game for Kentucky at UNC. I think the crowd, I think the environment is just too much for UNC to handle in this early of the season. I think we've already played a blue blood team in Kansas, but that was at home. That was
Mhm.
Caleb Wilson's really come out game, and that was the first time they had all this juice, all this excitement. And as an athlete, when you have these big games coming up early in the season, you have the momentum, you have the excitement to go out there and play. And then you have a second big game when you lose. That excitement for that third big game is not going to be as high as the first. So it is definitely a toss up. I'm gonna have to give Kentucky the slight edge in this matchup.
As far as my prediction, I think the Michigan State loss will help fuel the motivation for this team going into Tuesday night. I don't think they'll shoot the ball as poorly as they did from three as they did against Michigan State. I think the guards will play better. I think Wilson will have a highlight game of the season. My prediction, I got the Heels winning by 3 points. I think the absences of Jalen Lowe and Jaden Quintanez are being a little overlooked by both sides, UNC and Kentucky. I know Kentucky fans are really hoping to get both of those guys back. I think their absences, Mark Pope's really going to have to dig deep into that bench. A Wildcats team that on a healthy day might be deeper than us,
Yeah.
missing two of their starters, we might actually have the slight edge there. So I think the Heels will shoot the ball better. I think we go in a rup, and I think we don't necessarily shock the world, but we get the big upset win, get a quad one victory going into our next big non-conference game against Ohio State. Well,
Absolutely.
that's going to do it for the third episode of the Chapel Thrill Pod. Thanks for watching or listening. We'll be back to provide our thoughts and opinions on UNC's performance against Kentucky, and we'll preview UNC's last big non-conference test against Ohio State in the CBS Sports Classic in State Farm Arena in Atlanta. The Tar Heels defeated UCLA 76-74 in the CBS Sports Classic last year. That was actually Carolina's only quad one win of the season last year. So back in the CBS Sports Classic, last time Carolina played Ohio State was also 3 years ago. I was at that game in Madison Square Garden. The Heels beat the Buckeyes 89-84 in overtime after Pete Nance had actually hit a jumper at the buzzer to force overtime.
I remember that.
You remember that game?
Yes, Pete Nance. Yeah, I do remember that very vividly. I remember seeing that and just, wow, that's it's been a while. That's
UNC was down 2 points, less than a second left. Nance got the ball, inbounded him, turn around, fadeaway jumper at the buzzer, send the game to overtime, and UNC went on to beat Ohio State in Madison Square Garden in the CBS Sports Classic. So that was 3 years ago. We'll do a deeper preview into that game once the conclusion of this Kentucky game. But hoping for all the best for UNC and Tar Heel Nation. For JJ, I'm Hunter Caparelli. As always, go Heels.
Go Heels.